Let's go to the Labor member for the seat of Lakemba in the New South Wales Parliament, Jihad Dib. Jihad, good to talk to you again. Your
nice
area,
to talk to you again, Chris.
Other areas of southwest Sydney are really feeling the pinch at the moment with the pandemic. You've been forced to submit to additional restrictions now, mandatory testing for tradies who are leaving the area and the like. Do you accept that these measures are worthwhile and people should comply?
So that's a bit further out than my electorate. I'm the electorate Lakemba, and that's Fairfield, Chris. And I can understand, obviously, that we're in a situation at the moment where things aren't getting any better. And obviously, the big concern that we've got is still the increased amount of people with, transmission who are out in the community. So, I think that the local members for that area put something out a bit earlier today where they said, look, that obviously they're in support of the government, in making a decision. I understand that. But there's things that we need to support. And one of the really easy examples that I'll give is making sure that if people are getting their tests once every 3 days, let's try and get the results of them, the results of those tests to them as quickly as possible. And to give you an example, it may mean that if somebody finishes a shift, say, 6 o'clock tonight, and they go and get a test straight after work, if they don't get their result until, say, this same time tomorrow or, say, even early the next morning, then they've actually missed out a day's work. So let's try and get those results to them as quickly as possible. I know that that's where we could put some more resources. We understand it. Like, life is really tough, at the moment, not only across my part of Sydney, but across Greater Sydney and beyond. And we've seen the results of that. And obviously we all share that concern in terms of the numbers that are not increasing. And so whatever we can do to try and improve that, we need to. But let's also find a way that we can ensure that if we're asking people to make sure they get a test every 3 days, that we can get them their results quickly. So if they do need to go to work, they can actually go to work. If they're not, they don't have it.
Shouldn't be forced to lose a day's work, as you say. In my experience, the turnaround in New South Wales testing has been very, very quick. But so you do support this? Because if this is happening in Fairfield now, there's every chance it could be extended, and it's a matter of principle anyway, forcing people to have this testing. These are often self-employed people.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of the challenge there, Chris, between sort of supporting and understanding why we need to do it. If we start mandating everybody needs to have a test, when you are restricting their movements, and of course what we need to do is make sure that we're not just saying that the only problem that we've got at the moment is Fairfield. We need to be really careful that we don't create tales of two cities, that we don't create divisions along along geographical lines. The whole southwest Sydney region basically covers 1 million people. It's a huge geographic area. I can understand that we've got some concerns around those parts of Sydney, as we do in other parts, and the local community is trying to do its very best. But as I said, if we want people to sort of really step up, we need to make sure then, as governments, whether you're government or opposition, we've got to be supportive of anything that follows some really good, sensible health advice. But I'd love to see a situation where if somebody did a test, say like I gave the example, someone did a test today, that they could be able to get the results quickly. Because what I'd also then worry about is that if it took you a whole day to lose, that's a day that you're missing out on work. That, for some of the people who are leaving, they're not choosing to leave home because, they feel like leaving. They actually have to, because it's the type of employment that they have. Not everybody can work from home.
Now, there are other areas that have made this worse for southwestern Sydney multicultural communities. Larger households, more people living at home. Therefore, when the virus gets there, more people get infected. There's been a demonstration of lower vaccination rates, perhaps more scepticism about vaccinations. And so you've been proactive in pushing for more ethnic language, different language communications and specific communications to various groups in the region. Again, we heard this sort of talk during Melbourne's outbreak, didn't we, that you need to really target people in their native tongue.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good pickup. And thanks for the compliment, mate. Myself and a number of people, and I've got to say that this is one that everybody has got to do a bit of the heavy lifting. Whether you're an MP who speaks a different language, whether you're a community leader or anything, to try and get that message out. And I want to make this point really clear, Chris. It's not like people who are from multicultural backgrounds say, well, you know what, I just want to break the rules. I don't want to do what I'm told to do. We need to make sure that the message is getting clear. Getting through really clearly. And a perfect example that I give is if somebody who, maybe hasn't grown up in Australia, hasn't been in school in Australia, wasn't born in Australia, might understand, say, 70% of some of the really complex things that we're asking people to do. Let's see if that can help them get 100% of the understanding. And what our job is to make sure that we get everybody at least understanding what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, to make sure they go and get tested, to understand that visiting homes is actually a way that this transmission is occurring. And so I think when we talk about things just like a family unit, we've got to be much more explicit and say we're talking about a household, because family units for people, for different people mean different things. Yep. For some people, they mean obviously your auntie, your uncles, your cousins, your relatives. Understanding that, and understanding that people aren't going out of their way then to sort of flout the rules. They go, oh no, but I'm allowed to visit family, making that really clear. So any language assistance that we can give is really important. And to give you an example, I've just spoken to someone in the health department. I said, look, it's great that you're doing all these videos in different languages and I'm going to share them. I'm using my platform, but can we do one in Auslan as well? The whole point is I want everybody to be able to understand every single thing. Don't leave a stone unturned. We don't want to be looking at this in a few months' time and saying, you know what, we could have done more. I wish we communicated it better.
Absolutely. It's amazing that people don't know everything they need to know already. We've been talking about this every day for 18 months. But while we're on the vaccine rollout, we know there's been hiccups with AstraZeneca, and that's put more reliance on Pfizer. So we desperately need to get more Pfizer into this country. But I want to show you what your former federal Labor leader, now federal Labor MP Bill Shorten, said about this yesterday, and find out whether you agree. Here's Bill Shorten.
I'm sick of the political class, so let me just say for the record as a politician, the vaccine rollout in Australia is a show, Patricia. It is just a mess.
He said it's a beep show, Jihad. Is that going too far? Is it that bad?
Look, there's some problems, and obviously Bill's got his own way of talking, and I think he's lived through it. Of course, let's not forget that he's part of Melbourne. Part of his electorate last year went through a really difficult time. I made this point, and I said that if we really want to make sure that people get out and get vaccinated, let's make sure that we have enough vaccines, that it's easy to get to the vaccine hub, that it's easy to make an appointment. Let's make sure that we get those things. I'm not going to buy into the argument that others are buying into. What I want to see is, I want to see us like everybody else get out of this. I want to get life back to normal. Like everybody else wants to get life back to normal. If that means that we need to get vaccinated and we need to encourage people to get vaccinated, well, let's make sure that there's enough vaccines. Let's make sure that it's easy to get to the vaccines. There'll be plenty of time for the blame game, and someone did this and someone did that. But right now, to the person in my electorate who's locked up in a 2-bedroom unit with 2 kids, really struggling to find a way through this, what they don't want to see is they don't want to see politicians having arguments across political divides. What they want to see is people actually finding solutions. I came up with one which is about the community languages, because it's one communication. The other one I suggested is, if we want to make sense out of people, let's get vaccinated. Let's make sure the availability is. Let's make sure we get the testing. Let's get sure we get the quick testing.
Absolutely.
Let's instead
They're the practical things we need. Thanks, Jihad.
That's all that everyone wants. Thanks, Chris. See you next time, mate. Take care to you and all your viewers as well.
Jihad Dib there, Labor member for Lakemba in Sydney. A good bloke too, speaking a lot of common sense there. Now,